Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to McDougall's Medicine with Dr. John and Mary McDougall. Tonight, we are going to start out the show talking about plants and how they are the most nutrient-dense of all foods and how they contain all the vitamins and minerals that you need, except for one. Hi, Mom and Dad, Dr. McDougall and Mary. Nice to see you. How are you?
Well, thank you.
We're good.
It's good to be here at 5 o'clock, as we are on every Sunday night, Pacific time. And yeah, I'd like to start out by sharing a little information that I think is important for people to understand. I'm going to do it as actually a 3-part series. Now, I don't know whether I'll get to the next part next week and the third part the following week, but eventually I'm going to be talking to you about vitamins and minerals and vitamin B12 specifically, and also vitamin D specifically. So that's kind of where we're going to go. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about vitamins in general at the present time. And so let's see if we can get the right screen up here. All right. Okay, let's.
I think you just need to get to presenter view down in the lower right-hand corner.
No, well, it's not exactly working that way.
There's presenter view.
How about that?
That works. Looks great.
That works. Here we go. All right. Well, anyway, I'd like to share with you a bit about vitamin mineral supplements and, your vitamin and mineral needs. This is important because pretty much all your friends and relatives know that plant foods are deficient in everything. I mean, good grief, pretty much everything. So you don't want to do that. And of course, that's where I was raised as a young child. I was raised by some very caring parents. And what they learned, like many of your parents learned, is they learned that the most important nutrients are protein and calcium. And as a result, I was certain I was not going to develop protein or calcium deficiency. So that's the way I was raised. As a consequence, many of you know my health history. I suffered from being overweight, maybe 80 to 90 pounds heavier than I am now. Had a massive stroke at 18, was lethargic, had major abdominal surgery in my early 20s. I mean, it wasn't easy raising on a diet that was so plentiful in protein and calcium. Now, what you need to understand, and if you don't believe it, look it up. There is no such thing as calcium or protein deficiency in the human being on any natural diet. It just doesn't exist. Go find me a study. Go find me a friend, a relative who has protein or calcium deficiency. I know you're thinking osteoporosis now, but the truth is, as you probably learned in other aspects of our care, you probably learned that it's actually excess protein that causes calcium problems. So, and problems with osteoporosis and kidney stones. So we have to get over that. Actually, dairy and meat, and we're talking about poultry and fish, etc., are deficient in a lot of things. Milk is deficient in iron. Meat is deficient in calcium. There is a relative deficiency of B vitamins, E, vitamin K. There's no vitamin C in milk or dairy. No beta carotene, which is converted to retinol in animals, but that's a plant form of vitamin A. No folate. After all, folate means foliage, doesn't it? No dietary fiber. It's deficient in minerals such as manganese and copper and potassium and boron. And it's a deficient in essential fatty acids. You tell me about deficiency, and I'll explain to you that meat and dairy are so deficient you cannot survive on a diet of meat and dairy alone. And I know some people try. They're called low carbers or ketos people. They're not in good health. You can't.
They must take plenty of supplements to go
Well,
along with
I think they do. And as a matter of fact, the Atkins program had to change its philosophy from bacon, butter, and brie to adding a lot of nutrient-dense vegetables because they're being so criticized for the fact that beef, butter, and brie cause cancer and heart disease and all kinds of problems. So the modification of the Atkins diet, pretty much as Atkins died, was to put some vegetables in, realizing that it's plants that deliver all the nutrients that we really need, and there's no such thing as calcium or protein deficiency. It does not exist. Find me a case. Send me an email. Never heard of it. All right. Animal foods are deficient in a lot of things, so much so that there was a singer named James Blunt decided he was going to challenge his keto friends, friends that were vegan. He was going to challenge his vegan friends. He decided to go on an all keto diet, and he felt like he developed something like scurvy. Anyway, in order to compensate for the deficiencies, you're told to take vitamin supplements, vitamin mineral supplements, which were developed in the 1940s. Dietary supplements are commonly consumed by people more as they get older. And the most common supplements consumed are B12, multivitamins, multiminerals, and vitamin D and omega-3 fats. We're going to have a chance to talk about all of these. I want to make sure you understand that when I talk about supplements, I'm not talking about natural medicines like ginkgo biloba, saw palmetto, and glucosamine, and MSM, and ginger, et cetera. I know those plant-derived medications that you call natural. I don't call those supplements. Supplements I call something you add back, like a vitamin or mineral, to somehow replace a deficiency. When it comes to vitamins, there are 13 known vitamins. Vitamin means organic and it's micro inside. Vita, it's referring to vital, amine, that's the second part of it. That was derived from the word vitamine. In other words, it's kind of vital for life. Vitamins cannot be synthesized in sufficient quantities. You have to get them from plants. In other words, the reason we call it a vitamin is because you can't make it. You have to get it from the outside. It's vital that you get it from the outside. So there are 13 various ingredients that you must get in your diet. There are 4 fat-soluble vitamins, 9 water-soluble vitamins, and anyway, there are 13 known vitamins, and 11 of these vitamins are made by plants. One of them, let's say the 12th, is vitamin D, which is really not a vitamin, it's a hormone. It's something you synthesize in your body. And the other is vitamin B12, which we're going to have a whole separate lecture on. Now, minerals is another issue that people are worried about. Are they going to get enough minerals if they eat plants? Well, minerals come from the ground. They dissolve in watery solutions. They're absorbed through the roots of plants, and they're incorporated in the roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and fruits of plants. And then animals come around and eat the plants. No animal eats ground. Well, maybe a 2-year-old. But otherwise, no animal eats ground. You get your minerals from plants that pick up from the ground these various elements. And the mineral deficiencies that you're so criticized about being a vegan for are iron and zinc deficiency. Those are virtually unknown. Just a part of the PR, part of the promotion that people offer in terms of trying to get you to eat more meat in the case of iron and zinc. The excuse people give for adding minerals and mineral supplements to their program is the soils are depleted. You know, once upon a time, they used to be pretty good. Those soils, they were healthy and full of nutrients, but because of all the years of over farming and so on, the soils are depleted. And I think there's some truth to that. The soils have been damaged, but we eat from such a variety of different soils that it doesn't become a practical thing. In other words, people don't develop mineral deficiencies in today's world because we eat various foods from various parts of the world. Now, there is a mineral deficiency you may be aware of. It happened in my parents' lifetime, my grandparents' lifetime. It was a iodine deficiency where people developed goiters. Somewhere between 30 and 40% of the population in 1922 had swellings in their neck, which are goiters, thyroid gland enlargements, and it was due to iodine deficiency. The kids who had brain damage, as assessed by a study at that time. So it's a real serious problem. But at that time, people were eating within 25 miles of their village. They had all their food grown in soils within, say, a small local area. And so because these soils were iodine deficiency around the Great Lakes, this is where it occurred, the goiter belt, there was a chance of developing iodine deficiency in goiters. But, you know, that's not the situation these days. You eat food from all over the world growing in all kinds of soils. You get apples from Washington, you get broccoli from California, corn from Idaho, potatoes from Iowa. all over the country.
Backwards.
What?
Potatoes come from Idaho, and corn comes from Iowa.
All right. Thanks. Anyway, the point is it never becomes a practical issue.
Just to show you I'm listening.
All right. In other words, you don't have to worry about having iodine or any mineral deficiency because of the variety of food we eat. All right, let's talk about vitamins. It's saved millions of lives. I mean, this was an absolute miracle, the discovery of vitamins and the utilization of vitamins in the early part of the 19th century. The idea was, prior to that, is there were only 4 nutrients that were required. These were fats, carbohydrates, proteins, and minerals until the 19th century. And then they discovered these 13 microorganic nutrients called vitamins. And they started treating people with various illnesses with various types of supplementation in foods. For example, one of the first vitamins discovered was vitamin B1, thiamine. It was a big problem in Japan. And they had an epidemic of B1 deficiency in Japan. It was called beriberi, particularly in the upper class of people, because they're the ones that ate the white rice. Okay, when you ate brown rice, you had plenty of thiamine to meet all your needs. But once you started refining the rice, then you took away the thiamine, the vitamin B1, and then rice became deficient, but only after processing. And so therefore it was the more wealthy people, the ones that considered it clean and more proper to eat white as opposed to brown rice. Scurvy, another big problem that people suffered from in the 1800s due to a lack of vitamin C. Half the sailors didn't come back because of the development of scurvy. And then a surgeon by the name of James Lind, he discovered that it was due to a deficiency in fruits and vegetables. Now, when you went out to sea, you took along various starches, say grains and legumes, and you took a few fruits and vegetables, but they rotted after a couple of weeks. And all you were left with was what I call above ground storage organs, or grains and legumes. And they're deficient in vitamin A and vitamin C. So people were developing this serious illness where it rotted all my gums, which gave out a black and putrid blood. My thighs and legs were black and gangrenous. I was forced to use my knife each day to cut into my flesh in order to release the black and foul blood. I also used my knife on my gums, which were livid and growing over my teeth. That's a description of this particular problem. Well, James Lind figured out that it was lack of fruits and vegetables, and he picked a fruit that would last for a long time on the voyages, and that was limes. And so as a result, the British soldiers became known as the limeys. Again, it was an unnatural situation. It was above ground storage and starches that were deficient in vitamin A and C, and they couldn't get the perishable fruits and vegetables to last for a voyage. Pellagra is due to niacin deficiency, and that was a big problem in the southwest of the United States. And the 4 Ds were dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, and death related to pellagra, which was niacin deficiency. But it was due to corn, and it only became a problem after they started manufacturing the corn, and they stripped it of its tryptophan and niacin. And then you develop pellagra. Otherwise, whole corn, you don't develop pellagra problems until you process it. And we have a problem with folate that many of you have heard about. It's a folate deficiency that results in what we call neural tube defects. And in my early training, I had a chance to be in the not a chance, it was a difficult time for me to be in the delivery room when 2 of the women delivered babies without brains, just a face, that was all. And I've seen too many young babies born with their spinal cord open. This is called spina bifida, and it's due to a lack of folic acid. Well, folic acid comes from foliage. It's a lack of plant foods. And you're not going to really solve the problem correctly by giving supplements, which are folic acid. Folate is in plants, folic acid is in the pill form. But women are told they have to start on folic acid pills even before they get pregnant. Now, that doesn't sound very natural, does it? You should be doing something else before you get pregnant. You should be eating a high folate diet. In other words, lots of plants, and then you'd never have this problem of spina bifida. We've done some amazing things. Since World War II, we've become a nation where science will cure everything. I mean, after all, we invented the atomic bomb. We could destroy the world. Why couldn't we cure the same way we cured scurvy and pellagra and beriberi and folic acid deficiencies? Why couldn't we cure heart disease and cancer with the same approach? And so what vitamin supplements and maybe a few scientists decided is that you could. And they started using these treatments that were highly effective for real deficiencies caused by eating refined and unnatural diets. Okay, it's damaged food or not enough food. The food's complete. And you still start messing with it, or if you didn't take enough limes along on your voyages. So anyway, that was the extension that occurred, and vitamin supplements are, they're a real big deal. Shouldn't be. All right. Once you have enough vitamins and minerals in your body to perform all the functions, why do you need more? Why do you need more? It's like if you're an automobile mechanic and you have 6 cylinders, 12 spark plugs, and all the 12 spark plugs ignite all the fuel in your 6 cylinders. What if you put 18 spark plugs in the engine? Well, you already ignited all the fuel. How could you do any better? And it's the same thing with adding supplements. You've got these various metabolic pathways that go through your system, which you need vitamins and minerals for. But once you fill all the sites where the metabolic processes take place, then anything you add comes about in excess. Most of it you just urinate out, especially the water soluble iron. Well, those are the excess off to the side. I'm just showing you some of the basic metabolic processes that are required in our human body that use vitamins and minerals. All right, so there are 9 water-soluble vitamins, 4 fat-soluble vitamins, and then there are carotenoids, which are also fat-soluble. Let me talk to you about beta-carotene and vitamin E in pills as opposed to plants. Plants are loaded with all kinds of carotenoids. There are about 750 natural carotenoids in the plant kingdom. The human being requires 50 different carotenoids, which all work inside of your cells. And these carotenoids are important to keep your cells healthy and your body healthy. Investigators noticed in around 1950 that cancer was more common in parts of the planet where people had a diet that was low in beta-carotene, in other words, low in fruits and vegetables. So they thought, well, instead of feeding them the fruits and vegetables, why don't we just feed them beta-carotene as a supplement? And so they started a couple of experiments, and I'm going to show you these 2 experiments. One published in the New England Journal of Medicine, 1996. The other was published in 2002 in JAMA. What they did is they took people at high risk for cancer, lung cancer. These would be smokers and asbestos workers, and they fed one group the beta-carotene, and the other group got a placebo. And those that got the beta-carotene had 28% more lung cancer. Here's another one of the double-blind randomized trial. 18,000 smokers or former smokers. They gave them beta-carotene, and they had 28% higher risk of lung cancer. You see that? You wonder why. How could it be worse? They did 17%. Death was from any cause was 17% higher. Heart disease was higher. Lung cancer was higher by giving beta-carotene supplements. Let me see if I can explain to you how this works. It has to do with nutritional imbalances that are created by feeding large quantities of isolated nutrients. All right. Fruits and vegetables. They're put together in a perfect orchestration of structure and metabolism so that you can recognize. You call that thing that looks like a smile, what do you call that? What do you call the thing that looks like a nose on the person's face? How about the 2 eyes? And the hair represents what? You could recognize all these fruits and vegetables because they are put together in a precise manner by nature. It's been going on for 400,000 or 500,000 years. Longer than that. It's been going on for a lot longer than that. Well, anyway, there are thousands of minerals and vitamins and so on. They have to be arranged in a proper structure so you get fruits and vegetables that you can identify. What happens is when you flood the system with an isolated, concentrated nutrient, you disrupt the system, you cause nutritional imbalances. Let me see if I can be more specific on that. Inside of your cell are receptors. They're called carotenoid receptors. Now, the beta carotene you eat, or all the carotenoids you eat, remember there are 50 that the human being needs, and you're supplementing with a single carotenoid, beta carotene. All of these carotenoids have to attach to that receptor in order to work. When you give food, what happens is the beta carotene, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytates, the fibers, they all enter the intestinal tract, the bloodstream, and the cells in a precise mechanism that's been going on for 400 million years. But when you add a supplement, what happens is what you do is you flood the receptors with an isolated concentrated nutrient. Like in this case, it's beta carotene. Now there's no place for the other 49 carotenoids to sit and to cause their activity. And as a consequence of this, you end up with all kinds of health problems. Like, for example, when you get folic acid, yes, you take care of spina bifida, but you increase the risk of heart disease from folic acid in the general population. You may solve the problem of spina bifida by giving folate, but you increase the risk of dying and cancer and dying of heart disease in these studies on folate supplementation. So these nutritional imbalances that are created are very significant in your life. There are also mineral imbalances. It's not just vitamin imbalances that occurred by flooding the system with isolated concentrated nutrients. You could do the same thing with various minerals. Copper is inhibited by zinc. Zinc is in competition with copper and iron. In other words, when you flood the intestinal tract, the system, with various minerals, it blocks out the absorption and utilization of other minerals. You need to take your vitamins and minerals and other essential nutrients in the form intended. You can't take and manufacture such that you isolate one nutrient out and leave everything else behind. And this isolated concentrated nutrient they're selling you is what we call vitamin and mineral supplements. They'll make you sick. Not just waste your money, they'll increase your risk of dying, cancer, and heart disease. All right, Heather, I'm open for questions.
That's great. Good timing. Lots of important information. Okay, lots of questions.
We'll talk about B12 because I know that's really interesting for people, and the whole vitamin D issues. You're getting misinformation, folks, and you don't know quite how to act. I'll give you kind of a heads up. B12 deficiency is virtually unknown. We'll talk about that sometime in one of our lectures. And vitamin D supplementation is toxic. If you take in more than 1,000 international units a day, you increase your risk of falls and fractures. So we're going to talk about that as the weeks go on, and many other things.
Great. We look forward to that. Okay, questions. They've been coming in while you've been talking. AA Strumming wants to know if you have an umbilical hernia containing fluid with inflamed fat. Should that be removed with surgery, diet? What should someone do?
Umbilical hernias are where you see you have the midline structure right here. Okay, I need to go down the belly. So you have these two sets of muscles that come together right in the midline. And those two sets of muscles split open. And what happens is the abdominal contents, the intestines, they will take and bulge up through this split muscle. That's what a ventral hernia is. They are cosmetic. You don't have to do anything about them. If you're tired of looking at the bulge, then have it operated on. This is as opposed to inguinal hernias. An inguinal hernia occurs in, best I can describe the inguinal area, it's down in your groin. And these occur usually by slipping through a natural passage where the testicle passes in the embryologic development. There's actually a tube where the testicle descends from the pelvic area up in the pelvis when you're an embryo. It descends down to the scrotum, and it goes through kind of like a tube to get down into the scrotum. Okay, that's its development. Well, this tube provides an opening where it can be dilated. Dilation of a muscular area is called a hernia. It's an inguinal area, so it's called an inguinal hernia. And there, a piece of bowel can slip through and can become strangulated, and that's an emergency. You might have to end up going to the hospital and having the piece of bowel that's strangulated, it's dying, reduced. But you need to know, if you have even an inguinal hernia, if you have the choice of having it operated on right now, it's not giving you any trouble, but you got it, as opposed to waiting, you're better off waiting than having it operated right now. You get into trouble, it could be an emergency, but when they assess all the benefits and risks to you, the studies come out is inguinal hernias don't have to be operated on, and umbilical hernias shouldn't be operated on, except for cosmetics. I mean, if you're going to get in a bathing suit this summer and it's something you care about, then have it operated on. There are lots of surgeons will do it for you.
Thank you. That was helpful. Okay, next question. This is from Hanging Out with Kim. What does it mean if I have too much iron in my blood when I'm strictly whole food plant-based?
Well, it depends on how much you have. You could be a smoker. The smokers have a higher hemoglobin level. They have more iron in their blood. Why? Because when you smoke, you take in carbon dioxide and you need more blood to supply the tissues. So the body makes more blood, takes up more iron. So that's one way you get elevated iron. The other thing is eating the Western diet, because of the sludging of the blood that occurs. And I've showed you this, and the drop in oxygen that occurs after one high-fat meal. Just think about what happens after 3 or 4 high-fat meals every day. What happens is the blood sludges, the oxygen content drops. To compensate for that inefficient oxygenation and circulation, the hemoglobin will go up, just like with a smoker. And then we have conditions called hemochromatosis. Oh boy, that may be what we're talking about. That's a pretty serious condition. That's an iron overload problem. That can occur by consuming high doses of iron in supplements. I remember one article I read. It was rural Africans. They brewed a beer in an iron pot. And as a consequence of brewing the beer in a cast iron pot, the village of people developed hemochromatosis. So an excess intake of iron could be another problem. And then there's the underlying condition called hemochromatosis, which nobody seems to know the cause of. But, I'll just throw my old broken record on the player and tell you, I think you ought to change your diet if you haven't, because the kind of iron that you consume on a plant-based diet is different than the kind of iron you consume on a meat-based diet. Meat iron is called ferric. Plant iron is ferrous. I hope I don't have those mixed up. But anyway, doesn't matter. It's a different kind of iron. And I've taken care of a couple of patients with the underlying condition of idiopathic hemochromatosis, and they did very well by switching to all plant foods and the ferrous kind of iron as opposed to ferric. It's much less absorbable. And then if you want to push it a little further, ascorbic acid causes the ferrous iron to be more rapidly converted to ferric and increases the absorption of vegetable iron, increases absorption to the point where nobody's going to develop iron deficiency on a plant-based diet. Just never occurs. So that's iron deficiency. We were talking about iron excess. Anyway, I'd go on a good diet, see what happens. The only other treatment you have is you go down and give blood transfusions. You take that's what they do.
Yeah, get rid of some of the iron, right?
Get rid of some of the iron. You go out and donate your blood. But that's the treatment for it. Otherwise, I think you ought to give a good diet a try.
Well, didn't she say she was on?
She's already eating a good diet. She's here every Sunday, so I have no doubt
Well,
she knows
I
the
would
program.
ask her to think, whether it's just a normal variation, or it's really a big deal. I mean, you're talking about hemoglobin's up in the 17 or 18% range. Should be 14 or 15. Or 12.
Okay, thank you. Next question. This is from Carol. She has a history of kidney stones and loves to eat asparagus. Is it high in calcium oxalates, or are there any other reasons I should avoid it?
No, you shouldn't avoid it. I just wrote a couple of paragraphs that are on the website. Just wrote it up because we get this question so often. But if you want to find my original answer to this, you look in a book I wrote called McDougall's Medicine: A Challenging Second Opinion back in 1984. In the chapter on kidneys, I explained to you why you should eat vegetables if you're a kidney stone former, and why you shouldn't eat vegetables, or if you're a kidney stone former, why you shouldn't eat meat. In fact, there was an article published in 1979 in the British Journal of Urology, which was entitled, "Should Recurrent Stone Formers Become Vegetarians?" Think about it. That was the title of the article. Should recurrent stone formers become vegetarians? What happens is this: vegetables are high in oxalates. Kidney stones are usually made of a combination of calcium and oxalate. So the obvious thing would be you shouldn't eat a high oxalate diet. But what confuses people is that stone formation, calcium oxalate formation, occurs in populations where they eat a high meat diet, a low plant food diet. So this is contrary to the fact that plants have lots of oxalate on the initial thought. But if you analyze what's going on, it makes sense. Calcium oxalate is bound tightly in spinach, kale, all the vegetables. It's bound so tightly that it can't be absorbed. And so it passes right out with the stool, unless you eat fat with it, vegetable or animal fat. And then a process occurs called soponification. It's like soap, S-O-A-P, but it's spelled S-O-P-A, soponification. Look it up. What happens is the soap grabs a hold of the calcium, complexes with it, which frees up the oxalate. Now the oxalate can be absorbed. You can relate to this when you shower. If you are in soft water where they've taken the minerals out, you don't seem to get the soap off. Do you ever notice that? And then when you shower yourself with a lot of minerals in the water, you just seem to come clean. That's because the soap has complexed with the minerals. You see the relation? Okay, so you've got all the oxalate coming in. Then you've got the calcium coming in because you're eating a high protein diet, which dissolves the bone. So you've got this combination of calcium and oxalate in the kidney fluids, in the fluids that are in the kidney, and they combine to form calcium oxalate stones, which are the most common stone on the Western diet. Stones are extremely rare to non-existent in people who eat a starch-based diet. After World War II, stones became an epidemic throughout Europe. The evidence just goes on and on and on. But even urologists, even kidney specialists are confused and don't understand what I just told you. They're befuddled. They go, you should eat a low oxalate diet. But when I look around the world, I find people who are living on plant-based diets don't get these kidney stones. And plants are high in oxalate. I'm confused. Well, you're going to stay confused, until you understand the underlying metabolic processes that are going on. Saponification, S-O-P-A, not S-O-A-P, S-O-P-A, saponification. Got it. Anyways, it all makes sense. Stone formers are people with the Western diet. There's another kind of stone, a uric acid stone. Well, uric acid is from high meat diets too. You can't win. This animal food, a rich diet, will make you sick. It'll kill you. You know that. We don't have to tell you that. Look around. All right.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Let's see. This is from Jeannie. She's been told by her ophthalmologist to take omega-3s for severe dry eyes. She's been taking algal oil.
Does it work?
I don't know.
I heard this recommendation before to
Algal oil?
take oil, yeah. Omega-3 oils. It's supposed to get your eyes to not be dry. Well, let's talk about the cause of dry eyes. It's called Sojourn syndrome. And what it is, real dry eyes we're talking about. It's an autoimmune disease where the body's immune system attacks the lacrimal and the salivary glands. That's real dry eye. And you don't have any saliva either, much of saliva either, because your glands are destroyed by an autoimmune reaction. And how do you get this autoimmune reaction? You get it because the body gets confused because you eat foreign salivary and lacrimal glands. How do I eat foreign salivary and lacrimal glands while you eat hot dogs and sausages. They don't waste anything in the slaughterhouse. So that those glands that come from a pig and a cow or whatever else they're slaughtered in the slaughterhouse, they just throw it in the sausage. Add a little spice and salt, and you never even notice. And so the body sees this foreign salivary material, lacrimal salivary gland material, floating around the blood. It goes, hey, look, there goes cow salivary. Oh, there goes pig lacrimal. That could be a virus or a bacteria. I better go get it. So it makes antibodies to these foreign, what we call antigens. But there are similar, because you got salivary glands and lacrimal glands, there are similar structures in your body, and the antibodies are trying to attack the foreign ones, but they're so similar to your proteins and structures in these glands that it ends up attacking your own glands. That's autoimmune disease. All right, that's how you get the most severe form. And the only thing I know is you can take artificial tears and artificial saliva. It's a real tough problem for people to have. Short of that, there are probably some ways to stimulate saliva production that you might learn about on the internet. I think I've heard about some of these certain foods you could eat to help it. But when the gland's gone, it's gone. And I assume you're talking about something that's really a problem, which it could be this. And you say, well, I eat a healthy diet now, but I eat a healthy diet now too, but I didn't when I was a kid or growing up.
Thank you. Next question. Brenda, she doesn't eat salt, and so she's worried she'll get a goiter because she's not having iodine. Is that something to worry about?
Not in this society. If it was in the 1920s and she lived in the Great Lakes area, that's how they solved the goiter belt problem, is they put iodine in the salt. You have Morton's iodized salt. That's how they wiped out the goiter issue. And by the way, there's still goiter belts. It was in the US in the 1920s around the Great Lakes. But there's still goiter belts around the world, like in Africa, rural Africa. And the way they treat these is they go in and they give the children and adults injections of oil that has iodine in it. It lasts for years, just an injection of iodine in oil. But you don't have to worry about it in our country because, okay, maybe you got some apples grown in Michigan, which are still a little iodine deficient. Maybe, I don't know. And like I say, where is corn grown? Nebraska. Iowa. Okay. Corn's grown in Iowa and the potatoes in Idaho.
Yeah.
All right. And apples in Washington. And there's plenty of iodine. I've never seen a goiter in 55 years of medicine. I've never seen one. So, and if I would, I would have treated with some iodine supplementation. But if you're worried, you can always add a little iodized salt. It's not going to hurt you, I'm aware of.
Maybe we should take this moment to talk about how we are not a no salt, no sugar program.
It was interesting. I did a panel last Friday, and I made the comment that many of my colleagues follow a starch-based diet for their patients. It's very similar to ours, but they do an additional thing. They take away salt and sugar. That makes the food less palatable. And so you lose more weight, but you don't stick with it very long because you're constantly apologizing to yourself and to your friends that the food doesn't taste good. Because what makes the food taste good is salt and sugar. So we use salt and sugar on the surface of the food, small amount, maybe a tablespoon of sugar, brown sugar, white sugar, molasses, honey, whatever you want, agar, whatever. Maybe a teaspoon on your oatmeal in the morning for breakfast, or maybe a half a teaspoon of salt sprinkled on your food throughout the day. Half teaspoon of salt is not much. It's 1,150 milligrams of sodium. And
but it's plenty if you put it on your food, because you would never put that much on one bowl of soup.
no, if you put it on the surface, that'd be a lot.
Yeah.
And Mary never cooks with
No.
salt. And we don't even buy salted tomato. It was I complained a while back because it was too salty, the tomato
Oh,
paste or
yeah,
tomato.
tomato paste, yes.
paste.
You have to make sure I buy the no salt kind, because
I can't take it. But it's only because I've adapted to a low salt diet. But anyway, let me give you some relative numbers that will show you that we really feed you a low salt diet with a lot of taste. And that is that our diet has about 500 milligrams of sodium. Half a teaspoon of salt is like 1,100 milligrams of sodium. You add those together, you get 1,600 milligrams of sodium. If you get hospitalized for a heart condition, heart surgery, cardiac arrest, you get hospitalized, the typical coronary care unit diet is 2,000 milligrams of sodium, which is 400 more than ours, with a half teaspoon of salt added on the surface of the food. We want you to like the food. You know, I want you to stick with this your life. You'd never have to apologize for having our marinara sauce and pasta. You never have to apologize for having our bean burritos or having our minestrone soup, ever, ever, ever. People will think, hey, this tastes like it's got meat in the minestrone soup, and they go looking for it and they can't find it. Well, I thought it was. Tastes as good as the old stuff I used to eat. Well, of course it does, because the meat has no taste to it, or it's disgusting. You can't eat it. Well, come on, folks. Come on, you cannot eat raw meat, can you? You know, some of you do. How about boiled chicken? How about this? Sound good? No, you want to cook it and put steak sauce over it and salt and barbecue sauce, because you can't stand the underlying stuff. So we take away nothing but the battle of the bulge and a lifetime of sickness when we take the animal foods out of your diet. Not a bit of taste. Now, I have the most enjoyable meal plan, and any of you who've been with us for any period of time are saying the same thing. We're not suffering. You know, we spend less time cooking, less time cleaning up. Good grief, you don't have to bring out all the detergents and scrub for a half an hour to get the grease off of all your utensils. This is an easy way to live, folks. Not to mention not spending your time being sick and go to the doctor and taking pills. Our food, salt, sugar, and spice is what tastes. And we allow those in reasonable amounts for almost everybody. There are a few exceptions.
Great, thank you. Okay, Tina is writing in, and she would like your advice. She's got, or someone she knows, has ulcerative colitis and kidney disease. What would you recommend?
Well, they can go together, Heather, because you can have autoimmune kidney disease and autoimmune bowel disease. In fact, most people who have an autoimmune disease, they have several organs that are being attached. You know, it's very common for people with ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, to have carditis, to have heart problems, or also eye problems, uveitis. So they kind of go together. And there's a reason for that. It's because the mechanism involved in causing the autoimmune disease is, like I just explained to you, you end up eating foreign body parts, foreign thyroids, foreign bowels, foreign kidneys, foreign joints, etc. And these things go in your blood. Your immune system says they're foreign. They could be a bacteria or a virus. I got to make antibodies against them, but the antibodies are not specific enough to tell the difference between you and what's out looking for, the foreign protein. So it attacks you. Anyway, what you do is your friend changes their diet. We have very good results. If you go to the YouTube presentation on my lecture on autoimmune diseases, I talk about ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. In that lecture, they'll show you the research. You know, these are diseases that only occur in populations that eat the Western diet. And many people get over them by changing. It's slow. It takes about 4 months. But, you know, whereas rheumatoid arthritis starts to get better in like 4 to 7 days. So it takes a little bit longer because there's so much damage done to the bowel. Anyway, if you look at my May 2014 newsletter, you'll find a full description on how I treat autoimmune diseases. Basic McDougall diet, take care of the celiac issues, leaky bowel, wheat, barley, and rye, right? Yeah. Okay. And then we go on to something called the elimination diet. And you know, even the sickest of people who have the most mysterious of diseases have been helped by doing the elimination diet. So don't give up. Don't declare yourself incurably ill until you followed a few of our steps. And it won't take you long. It won't take you any more than 4 months to find out whether the McDougalls are telling you something worthwhile. So, oh, Heather, I was going to say, One of the experiences with the food that I'll always remember is I spent 16 years at St. Helena Hospital, and we had a hospital cafeteria that was trying to prepare tasty vegetarian food. Now, they were a Seventh-day Adventist hospital that served meat, by the way. They're not supposed to. Ellen White would have been very upset about it. But it was a hospital kitchen, and I had to take all the animal foods and all the oil away, and basically they left me with nothing. So the food tastes like it. Mary wouldn't even come over to St. Helena to eat. I had to go myself and sit through dinner. And I sat through dinner. I said, if you could only come home with me, and we could serve you the food the way we eat it in our house, as tasty. It really is and should be. But this was a hospital food service fixing it. So you can imagine the 8 ball I was behind. So when we left in 2002, St. Helena Hospital, after taking care of over 3,000 people for 16 years, one of the things I told Heather and Mary is I want the food at our resort to taste just like we do at home. And they took about 11 months to work with the kitchen staff. But the food during those 18 years tasted like we eat it at home. Didn't have to apologize anymore. If the food isn't right, you're probably not adding the salt. That's probably right. And secondarily, you got to put a little bit of effort into the spicing and cooking.
Great, thank you. It's all about the seasoning, right? We've got lots of sauces and dressings and marinades on our website at drmcdougall.com. Okay, let's see. Next question. I've got lots. I don't know if we'll be able to get to them all. I do my best. This is from Dan. He's 49. He follows your program. He had a colonoscopy that found and removed precancerous polyps 5 years ago. Later, his next colonoscopy was clear. Would you recommend more colonoscopies every 5 years?
If he was my patient, no. Well, first of all, the initial colonoscopy misses somewhere up to 42% of the polyps. All right. Now, let's just assume most specialists don't miss that many, but it can miss almost half the polyps, the initial exam. But assuming that all the polyps are cleared, as far as I'm concerned, that should be it. And if you ask doctors when because they'll say you have to get another colonoscopy in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. Now I think the general recommendation is 10 years. But you ask the doctor, what evidence do you have that that's the proper interval? What evidence do you have that I'm going to be benefited or living longer if I get a repeat at 5 years or 10 years? Show me the evidence, doctor. The answer
Well, he
is,
said he had another one though.
yeah, he did. He got clear.
He got a clear one, so now
He should be confident.
Yeah.
Definitely. But other patients will be told, at 5 years or 10 years, there's just no evidence. Plus, this is really important. And I want you to, somebody did this for me. I challenged them a couple of nights ago in a lecture I gave. I told them, I said, you look up the first and only randomized controlled trial on whether or not colonoscopy saves lives. And I told her where to find it. I told her in my October 27th, 2022. Okay, October 27, 2022, New England Journal of Medicine. She looked it up and she wrote me back. She said, explain to me. I don't understand this. It said that they found a whole bunch more cancers in the colonoscopy group and more polyps. I said, yes, they did find it. But the only way you can evaluate the true benefits of a screening program is you have to have more people alive at the end of the study in the intervention group than are alive in the control group. Whether you find more cancers or not doesn't make any difference. Even whether you decrease your risk of dying of colon cancer doesn't make any difference. What makes a difference is you improve overall survival. Why? Because when you go looking for polyps, you kill people. Okay? You do perforations, that kills a few people. The anesthesia kills a few people. Bleeding kills a few people. And then you go over, you find something. Then you got to treat them. Radiation, surgery, chemotherapy, that kills people too. Those people count. So maybe you saved a life by doing a colonoscopy. You killed somebody else in the process of doing it. This is a randomized controlled trial done in Western Europe, in Poland, Norway. And it involved 85,000 people, 10 years long. The only the first and only randomized controlled trial, showed no difference in survival. 10 years, 85,000 people. October 27th, 2022, New England Journal of Medicine. Look it up. And if you have trouble understanding what they're saying, yes, they do find more polyps and cancers. Yes, maybe fewer people die of colon cancer, but no, the whole group doesn't live any longer. And that's the only thing that counts. So if the first one didn't work, why would the second one work? Or the third one? These guys are crooks. And they know it. That's the thing, is my colleagues know this. And if you take a look up, I wrote this woman a nice letter back because she asked a serious question. I explained to her why she needed to look at the research paper differently. She had to look at total mortality. You have to survive longer. And she didn't understand that. I explained it to her, and I said, if you did a research, if you put in a Google and you put in a research, adverse consequences of colonoscopy, you'll find in the journal Nature, in a whole bunch of newspaper and magazine articles, other people saw the study the exact same way I did. Now, those making $3,000 colonoscopy, they didn't see it that way. But I sure did, and so did a bunch of other well-read, intelligent people. Yes, you read it. You see what you see. Okay, October 27th, 2022, New England Journal of Medicine. Write me and tell me if you don't understand what I'm saying. Okay. So I answered that thoroughly, huh?
Yeah.
Probably more than you should have.
Probably always, but we love it. Okay, next question. Let's see. We get this one quite a bit. This is from Vegan Great Life. Want to know if you have any recommendations for Raynaud's. This person's fingers go totally white even after just peeling potatoes.
Come on, Mary. Come on, Mary.
No treatment for Raynaud's. I've had it for
you get
years. I can answer the question.
She follows a good diet too.
I follow a good diet. I follow, perfect diet. And whenever I get cold, my fingers go numb. My toes used to. They're not too bad up here, but I was pretty good when we lived in Hawaii.
You see that back there? That was 15 years.
We lived in Hawaii
No
for
Raynaud's.
15 years. I didn't have Raynaud's except when I went into the grocery store and I went in the freezer department and I put my hands in the freezer and then I would get Raynaud's.
Yeah, what there's a condition where the blood vessels, like in the fingers and toes, usually, they respond to cold by shutting down. Your fingers turn white and then blue.
And blue.
Yeah, so
Awful.
I don't know what causes it, and I certainly know a healthy diet doesn't solve it for everybody. And there's no other good treatment except keep your hands out of cold places.
Yeah, that's, I guess, peel your potatoes in warm water, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. This is from Deanne. She's wondering if it's possible that depression, anxiety, and other difficult mental health issues can be caused by an autoimmune disease.
Well, schizophrenia could. I don't know. I just haven't really thought about how other conditions could. I do know that depression is more common in developed countries. And that could be for a lot of reasons, including the diet. There is a whole lecture in my March, I'm losing my mind, 2004 newsletter. You can look it up here. It's March 2004, I believe, on depression, natural cure for depression. And it talks to you about various ways that you can deal with it. And the food part is this. It's done by Richard and Judith Wortman from MIT in the 1980s. What they found is that when you eat a high animal food diet, then an amino acid called tryptophan can't get through the blood-brain barrier into the central nervous system where it is converted to serotonin, which relieves depression. So what happens is in animal foods, we have what we call heavy neutral amino acids. They're just the size and the activity of the amino acid. And these heavy neutral amino acids, they have to go through gates between the blood system and the spinal fluid. Their blood-brain barrier, it's called. And these gates get filled up with these heavy neutral amino acids. And so tryptophan, which is one of the amino acids, it's present in turkey, but it's present in all your vegetable foods, can't get in. And so once you take the animal food out of your diet, according to Richard and Judith Wertman, you solve all kinds of problems, including premenstrual depression and lifelong depressions and all kinds of things. If you read that March 2004 newsletter, you'll find that exercise, sunshine, and not getting too much sleep are the other keys to solving serious depression problems. It's worth a read, the March 2004 newsletter. Is that right, Heather? It's March 2004.
You were absolutely right. And I shared that link in the chat. How you remember that? Okay.
The reason I do is because it's what I love. No, I can remember, I can't remember people's names, but I'll meet somebody that I've taken care of. For example, I go, hey, your cholesterol used to be 233. I remember you had protein in your urine. What's your name? And, I'm just kind of stuck on what I enjoy. I enjoy research. I enjoy taking care of people, and that's where I pay my attention. It takes me a couple of weeks to write these newsletters. So I put a lot of work into each one of them.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, let's see, 4 minutes. I'm getting to the end, but I'm still not going to get to them all. Thoughts on long-term water fasting for weight loss and longevity?
It's temporary. I mean, how long can you water fast? I don't think I don't recommend people go through an initial phase where they lose a lot of weight and they're really excited, and then the weight loss is difficult. You do this with the low carb diets. You lose 6, 8, 10 pounds of water weight first week, and then you suffer from loss of appetite for the rest of the time because you're in ketosis. But why bother going through a water fast, lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks, and then have to go back to the wrong food? Fortunately, the water fasting place that we work with, True North, they serve the McDougall diet without salt and sugar after you leave. So, after having 2 weeks or a week without only water, you got to believe the McDougall diet tastes good. Even without salt and sugar. You'd love anything. So if you're having trouble learning to like the diet or get into it, water fast, that would be a good way to do it. You got 2 minutes, Heather.
Yep. No, I want to fit this last question in. This is from Novi Pam. They're a type 1 diabetic, struggling with high starch, lots of injected insulin, hard to control. Any suggestions?
Yeah, well, this person really isn't enthused about doing the program, because they would listen to my my YouTube video on diabetes and really know how to understand it. A diabetic knows their insulin needs and the reaction to food and insulin better than anybody else. So they ought to be able to figure this out very quickly. First thing is what I do when I take care of a type 1 diabetic who produces no insulin in the pancreas, is I cut the insulin dosage that they're taking by at least a third. Sometimes I cut it in half. Why? Because low blood sugar is far more dangerous than high blood sugar. And then what I do is, over the next period of time, I try and get their blood sugar somewhere between 150 and 250 milligrams per deciliter. To make it lower than 150 is dangerous. Children in particular shouldn't lower below 150 because of the risk of hypoglycemia. And then in time, what you do is you balance your activity, your food, your insulin dosage. It's easy if you put a little effort into it. I don't believe this person is really convinced that it's time to change. But if you are, hey, join our 12-day program. What are you going to run the next 12-day program, Heather?
Well, our May program is sold out, so our next one is July 10th.
Well, come on, you can stuff a few people in there. I know you can, Heather. We'll figure out something to do.
You can always send us an email.
Are we going to do the GI lecture next month?
We are. We'll make an announcement about that.
All right. And we had a great, I tell you, I really enjoyed giving the lecture on attractiveness. And I know you were a little surprised that it was such a non-emotional lecture about it. So we're talking about sex with your daughter doesn't really work out too well. But
I was a little worried, but it was great. It's great.
This lecture was about improving your personal attractiveness, not only in sexual reproductive relationships, but in the workplace. And all the things that you would want to be attractive for in the bedroom are things you want to be attractive with the same efforts. You want to smell good, you want to look good, you want to sound good, all the things that convey positive aspects of your life, your activity, your fertility, everything. It was this lecture. You're going to really sit, if you got it up on YouTube, you do, don't you?
Yeah, it's in the live section of our videos on our YouTube channel. And I think it was just about looking and feeling your best and how to do that with food and exercise. It was just great. Very informative and a lot of information that you'd never shared before. So if you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch it. It's on our YouTube channel.
I really enjoyed giving that lecture, and I think you'll pick up a lot of things that you never knew. It took me 2 years to do that lecture, working on and off for the last 2 years. June 20th, June 2020, I finished it. Just gave it last week.
Oh, it was great.
But it was fun. It's worthwhile, folks. It really good. I have to tell you, it's really good. So.
All right. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Our hour's up. That was great.
All right. Good night. See you next Sunday, 5 o'clock Pacific time. Bring your friends and relatives, okay?
Thank you all for